Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Legacy Sports Podcast, brought to you by the Super Sports Bros. I'm your host, Antonio Popp, and today we're joined by my dad, Bill Popp. Dad, how are we doing?
Doing fantastic, Antonio. This is a great honor to be here in my basement with my crap table and all my sports memorabilia right behind us.
Yeah, and I mean, this is kind of where I started off talking about sports. It was really me and you on rides to and from school, to and from Red Wings game. This is where I got my inspiration. So it feels good to be kind of back in my hometown doing what I love and talking sports.
And it's great to have you back here talking sports. And there's a lot to talk about.
There is. We had the NFL draft. The NHL playoffs is underway. The NBA playoffs is underway. And so sad to hear about the Pistons, but we'll get that in a little bit later.
Right.
Tiger baseball is obviously underway, and they're playing very well. But to kick off the night, let's kind of get into the number one team in the land of Detroit, the Detroit Lions. You know, what did you think, first of all, of the draft of overall? Who do you think stood out to you? Do you think any of these players coming into this draft this year are day one starters?
So I don't think we have a day one starter.
Okay.
I think, from a draft perspective, the one, first of all, Detroit did a much better job with the draft than Green Bay. So all you Green fans, I just want to make sure you know I experienced the draft in Detroit. Detroit was definitely number one.
Yeah, so we had more fans than them.
Yeah, and we had some great moments in Green Bay as far as some of the jokes about their organization. But look, at the end of the day, the Lions are drafting really, if you look at it like in the second round now.
Yeah.
Let's just be real about it. And I don't think they're going to get that first class starting player like the last 3 or 4 drafts have come out to be.
Yeah.
If you think about it, Holmes and the team could draft. They drafted in the top 15 spots, and they were getting a great player. Like, you didn't have to be a genius to get a great player in the top 15, right?
Yeah.
So I think things are a little bit different for the Lions. They're going to have to really talent pick. Now, you can claim that they've talent picked at some of the second and third round players.
Yes.
But on the top player to start, I do not see a starter right now coming out of here.
So you don't think that Tyreek Williams from Ohio State, picked in the first round, number 28 overall, we see a need in that D-tackle position with Aleem McNeil and DJ Reader kind of being dinged up. McNeil is not going to be ready for the first half of the season. So you think it's going to be, as soon as McNeil is ready, Williams is out?
I think there's going to be a rotation of 6 defensive tackles.
Okay, so you think there's going to be a lot of...
There's going to be a lot of injuries. That position, notoriously for the Lions, has been an injury-prone position. And let's face it, they've got some exposure on the defensive line.
They do.
Massive exposure, because no one knows really how Hutch is going to be.
Yeah, and to that point, the biggest, everyone was, saying, Brad, draft a D-end. We didn't draft a D-end. And that begs the biggest question of it all.
Right.
Are we going to bring back Zadarius Smith? What do you think of that in your mind?
I think we have to bring him back. I mean, a capable player that's on a free agent right now, he would be one of them, and I think it would make sense to do it. But there's no guarantee. I didn't think he played that great.
Okay.
So, the problem is Hutch comes back, they're going to double team him.
Yeah.
And then we're going to see what happens. And let's face it, Hutch broke his leg in 2 spots.
Yeah.
Everyone saw him running. That's great, but I don't know if he's going to look good in practice. And when someone starts hitting him or someone falls on his leg, I mean, I don't want to be the Debbie Downer, but this is going to be a tough rehab, and it's far from over. So we got to watch what happens.
Definitely. You were saying earlier, we had a discussion about this, that the atrophy, we see about 10% of what it's worth of Hutch's workouts. We don't see him struggling. We just see him in dead sprints. And I mean, as much as I want him to go out there, and as much as the fans out there want him to go out there and be the same old Aiden Hutchinson, the fact of the matter is, he broke his leg. And I do have to agree with you on that point. It's going to be tough, comeback. But right now, I'm, a little bit optimistic. I've seen some good things out of that camp, heard some good things out of that camp, praying for Aiden Hutchinson for a speedy recovery. But we talked about, obviously, the first round pick from Ohio State. What do you think of the Lions' second round pick, Tate Rutledge, out of Georgia, one of the most physical offensive linemen in the entire college football world? He's a Lion through and through. Brad Holmes says he's a great locker room guy, a tough kid. And what do you think about Tate?
Well, hey, I love the mullet. Back in my day, the mullet was the great thing to have.
And the mustache.
Yeah, and the mustache. So I love the fact that he's doing that. Hey, look, once again, does he have a chance to start? Does he have a chance to improve the team? Absolutely. Will he get there? Time will tell. But I think that it's a stretch just that we think day one this kid's going to go out there and play guard for the Lions.
Yeah.
Okay. I think, mid-season, if someone gets hurt, which someone will get hurt, can he back them up? Absolutely. But I think in today's NFL, does it really matter who the starter is? It's becoming more important about who's
the backup.
The backup.
Because
the
so
depth
many
chart,
guys get
right?
hurt.
The whole league is all about being hurt, and the owners are taking it to extreme. What do they want to do? They want to add another game, or they want to add another paid exhibition game. These guys are all getting hurt. They're playing almost 20 full weeks of playing football.
Yeah.
That shit's crazy.
And for a team that wants to chase, we saw what happened last year with all the injuries.
Yeah, killed them.
Obviously, the Lions let go of Kevin Zeitler to the Tennessee Titans in this offseason. Filling that offensive guard position is key. I think picking up Tate, while he may not be a day one starter, he could, arguably be in that conversation for it, just because of where he played and how physical he plays.
Yep.
I think he's a great run guy. Detroit has a two-headed monster in that backfield with Gibbs and Montgomery. I think going forward, if you consistently improve on guys that you drafted upon in years past, like our cornerback situation with what's his name? Why am I blanking on who we picked last year?
Arnold.
Terrion Arnold, thank you. So, this is a big season.
Wasn't Terrion the one that went to the Packers and walked out with that outfit on? Or I think it was a different
I think it was a different guy.
Okay, yeah.
So, Terrion Arnold, obviously, we're looking for him to step up and some of the guys drafted last year to step up. This will be a very interesting season because, you look at a team like Philadelphia. I think, everyone kind of is fearful that they're going to repeat. They're kind of going to turn into the Kansas City Chiefs of a few years ago. What do you think the Super Bowl window is in Detroit? We're all very, kind of riding high in that Lions Kool-Aid. Where do you think we should stop drinking that Kool-Aid?
I think after this year, we're going to stop drinking Kool-Aid.
Okay.
So if we don't get it past this year, to me, it's over. And what more importantly it might be over is the fact that can you win with a quarterback the way Jared Goff is, right?
Yeah.
Jared Goff's a great quarterback, so nothing against Jared, but Jared doesn't move, in that pocket. He has no pocket presence to move out of it, and when he does, he looks pretty slow. My fat 62-year-old butt could probably run faster.
Well, I know about that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Well, yeah, it might not, but I think fans understand the point.
Yeah, they do.
Right. So what I think can end up happening here is the Lions are going to have to they have the talent to win the Super Bowl right now, probably the next 2 to 3 years.
Okay.
The question is, can they win in an offense the way they're positioned today with that quarterback the way he is?
And that was a big, question going into the last season and this season. Is Jared Goff the guy? I was a big believer in, everyone was second guessing Jared Goff when we got him. We didn't have a team around him. We started to develop guys, started to get Amon-Ra St. Brown stood out in his formative years. His rookie year, he played very well. I knew we would kind of be on this trajectory back then, even in the Fat Patricia days.
Right.
But, it's one of those things that you look at this team, and really big the question mark is Jared Goff. And I think, as much as Jared is, he's a game manager at best. He's a guy that goes out there, throws to the open guy, and he lets his teammates do what they do. And I think, for a guy like we're kind of hinted at this earlier with the Tigers, do they have clutch hitting? Is Jared Goff big in the clutch? And the answer historically has been no, he's not. And that's one of the things that obviously Jared Goff in his career is going to need to kind of get going. And the big question is, can he for the Lions?
Yeah, I think that is the question for the whole Lions season, that and the defensive line.
Okay.
If the defense performs the way they on paper look, then I think it might be okay. But as you know, what's on paper doesn't talk about execution.
Yeah, not necessarily.
So everyone has a chance to win the Super Bowl. If you don't execute, you're not going to get there. They got a great coach, Dan Campbell, phenomenal. leader, all that, but like you gotta execute.
Yeah.
So
Now let's get back to the matter at hand, what we were talking about earlier, the draft. What would you give the Lions grade-wise in the draft, considering that they didn't go out there, get a D-end like they were supposed to. They go out and get a wide receiver from Arkansas,
Right.
hometown boy. They got some other positions they need, D-tackle, offensive line, and some other guys in that area as well.
You know, I think the Lions had an average draft.
Okay.
And I think they had, I give them a C. I think there's pundits that said that they had like a B plus to all the way to a D.
Yeah,
right?
which
So,
I thought was a little bit outrageous to say that.
I don't think we have we did not capture a starter in any position.
Okay.
I think we have good backups in those positions. We'll see how the kids come up. And the fact of the matter is, it's going to be more and more difficult as the Lions continue to win. Their draft position is down.
Yeah.
And so you're going to have to really start scouting talent. So picking the kid from Hillsdale / Arkansas,
Yeah.
hey, great emotional pick, but don't let emotion get in the way of doing the right business decision.
Yeah.
And that I think that was a mistake there. It sounded good on paper and the fans liked it, but I think they made a mistake there big time. So I give them a C.
C. Okay. Yeah. You know, Mel Kiper and ESPN said C plus. Who do you say overall won the draft?
I think Cleveland won the draft.
Why is that?
Well, they got Mason. They got the great defensive tackle from Michigan.
Yes,
right? He was the
true.
fifth
Mason
pick.
Graham. And putting him on
He's lifting. He's pushing. No one could stop. No one could block that kid.
And could you imagine
The kid from we drafted can't block that.
Yeah.
Mason. So
yeah, no, it's really interesting you say that because then you pair him with a Myles Garrett. So that right there is giving me goosebumps
Well,
right there. folks.
what are all teams going to do? They double team Garrett.
Yeah.
And then he's going to have his field day.
Yeah.
It's just that's what the Lions need to create.
Yeah.
Everyone double.
Teams Hutch.
Right. And then someone's got to be able to execute. So
yeah, and that's where losing.
But
Hutch,
I think Cleveland did a superb job because then they got a quarterback in the 5th round.
Yeah.
I mean that shit show was unbelievable.
I mean I think Shedeur Sanders, for all those people freaking out about him, I think he's going to be fine in the long term. I think it comes down to these interviews and him being cocky, him being a Sander, son of prime time, being a little full of himself. And I think he got humbled, and hopefully he comes out in Cleveland and makes a tear and beats Joe Flacco and Deshaun Watson.
I'm going to make a prediction on my first podcast.
Okay, what are you going for?
He's going to be the starter in Cleveland at quarterback.
For how long though? That's the question.
Well, no, he's going to start the season as starting quarterback.
Okay, how long is he going to go for?
As long as if they don't lose 14 in a row, 16 in a row, or whatever it is.
So you think
I think he's going to be the starting quarterback. I think.
Well, they also have Dylan Gabriel in Cleveland.
Who gives a damn?
Okay, so you really think that was just a place saver? Let's see how low Shedeur will fall.
I think they were, once he got past the first round, they were all laughing because if you do your homework, you're looking at other teams and saying, okay, what do they need? What do they need? And they just said, well, I don't have to waste this pick on a quarterback on the 2nd or 3rd round. I can wait to the 4th or 5th.
Yeah.
And that's what they did. Look, I think Cleveland did a great job. They, by far, you could say Jacksonville, who took the risk and, took, what's his name, Hunter. So, look, I think...
Travis Hunter, yes.
Travis Hunter, yeah. I think he's going to be a great player, but I actually think Charles Woodson, in my time, was a better two-way player than him, and Charles couldn't do it in the NFL. I think it's a different scenario.
That, especially with, he is so skinny when you look at him.
Yeah.
He's going to have to put on some LBs, either to play wide receiver or corner, whatever he chooses. And my thing is, when you do put on those pounds, you do become, it's a lot of running.
I mean, I met Charles Woodson, and he is thick.
Yeah.
Now, he is older, but we get thicker when we get older, for those who know me.
Yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, it's going to be hard to play two-way.
It is.
So I think they still got a great deal in pulling that off. I think the overall draft was a little boring for me.
Okay.
I didn't think there was like that gotcha situation other than the stuff that was going on in Cleveland.
Yeah, I really do think, going back to the question at hand here, who had the best draft? I think the New York Giants had a really good draft. You get Abdul Carter, and then you trade up and get a heck of a player, probably like the 3rd quarterback in that series, maybe even 2nd. Some people are Jackson Dart out of Ole Miss. I think, they obviously needed a quarterback and a DN. They got 2 unbelievable talents, and Abdul Carter and Jackson Dart.
I think the Giants are the Giants. They're going to suck forever.
Okay.
I mean, it's
the curse of Eli Manning.
Yeah. Listen. The Manning kid plays at Texas.
Yeah.
He's coming up next year. I think he's going to be the one that the Giants are going to end up drafting because they're going to lose again this year.
Okay.
A shitload of games. You watch, the Giants are going to fall.
Hear that, Mike Valenti? He's calling for it.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
And Manning's going to be the pick in New York, and then they're going to fire the coach and GM. That's what's going to happen.
It's just consistent carousel
that whole Giants
in those
stuff.
cities.
Yeah, that whole HBO stuff, the midseason show was
that
horrible.
That killed him.
It did.
Now, we talk about, laughing stocks of programs, right?
Yep.
And we talk about disgraces. Detroit Red Wings. 6 years now, going on 7, no playoff appearances.
Yeah, there's a couple of Red Wing pitchers. We moved them from there to over there.
Because we're so embarrassed about it. Even though we have Stevie Y behind my dad here.
Oh, boy. Should we talk about Stevie Y?
I think we should. I mean, obviously, him and McClellan got in that press conference, made some comments. I want to know what your thoughts are as a Red Wings fan coming out of those conferences. Do you think Stevie's deflecting blame away from himself?
Well, I'll talk about Stevie from the standpoint of, okay, our generation, my generation, remember him as saving Hockey Town.
Okay.
So there's a bunch of us who, no matter what Stevie would do, none of us would ever throw him under the bus. Okay. Yeah. I actually think my generation is starting to throw him under the bus because of his
warranted.
Yeah, it's just because of where the team's at. Now, for those who want to blame Kenny Howland about not drafting and there's nothing left in the closet, well, let me tell you, you can only blame someone for so long, and then you got to execute. I think that this is it for Steve for this year. If we don't make the playoffs this year, I just don't see it going any further. Okay, it's right back for those fans following us who were born after me. We remember Aggressive Hockey's back in town when we hired Ted Lindsay to be the general manager. This is a long time ago, and then he got fired. Everyone gets fired, so it's all good. But I thought the press conference was really bad.
Yeah, I definitely would agree with that. And like for someone like me, hearing the legends of Steve Yzerman growing up and realizing he's such a great player and seeing what he did in Tampa.
But you don't give a shit anymore, do you, about what he did as a player?
I mean, I get it. He is one of the greatest captains. He won 3
But who cares? It doesn't matter anymore.
I agree, but his legacy will forever be cemented as a Red Wing.
Absolutely, yeah. His jersey's right there, and it's signed, and it's all good. But does it matter? It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Right.
I agree. It matters what he does now. But I'm saying is that what he previously did in Tampa gives me hope. It's like, for instance, you look at kind of a guy like Javier Baez. You wait. Now he's producing. We'll talk about that in a little bit here. But I think the biggest question going forward is, he is good in the draft. We've seen production. We've seen guys like Marco Kasper, Soderblom. We've seen Mo Snyder. He get drafted.
I know. I think all those guys are good, average hockey players.
Okay. So
no one's standing out. Look,
Lucas Raymond,
Lucas is good. He's a good hockey player. He's going to score 25 to 30 goals a year.
Yeah.
But is he going to take over a hockey game?
I don't think so.
Okay. Is Mo going to take over a hockey game?
You see, I'm seeing your point now.
So go back to the days where all these fans out here listening to this podcast are going to say, well, back in the day, Eiserman was Larkin. We couldn't win the big game.
Yeah.
And the reason why we couldn't win the big game is because he didn't have Sergei. When Sergei came, he was really the number 2. You could have argued Sergei was better than Yzerman from a talent standpoint, and that's when the Red Wings took off, when they got Sergei Fedorov. The Red Wings do not have a number 2 good center to complement Larkin, and Larkin has suffered. So that press conference, that was about leadership at that press conference. That's all that was.
Okay. And then we hear, Larkin a few days earlier make a egregious comment saying what the heck are you doing at the deadline? And I think a lot of people, including myself, agreed with that, and maybe you as well. And then,
Well, I agreed if Larkin wanted to get traded, that's a good way to do it.
Okay, so you think there is a disconnect between Stevie and Larkin?
No, I think Larkin ripped on his boss publicly, and usually when you do that, something else happens. Now, Yzerman's a class act.
Yes, he is.
We might not agree on some of his moves, but Stevie's a class act.
Great guy.
So he probably pulled him in rather than a riot act, and then kept it going into the conference.
Yeah.
But look, at the end of the day, Yzerman owes no answers to anybody other than the Illiches.
And you firmly believe that. You don't think he owes me, you, people who invest their hard-earned money year in and year out for 2 years hoping to get a winner, seeing momentum, building momentum to get that. You think the fans, he does not owe anything to the fans.
I don't think he owes us anything. Now, we can select in or select out, right? We can buy tickets or don't have to buy tickets, right?
Buy pizzas, don't buy pizzas.
So if LCA doesn't have 20,000 people in it, someone's going to react to it.
Yeah.
I think the Wings are on the bottom echelon right now, getting into playoffs. You see Montreal, you see other teams that are just, Ottawa. I mean, there's just so many teams in front of them. Listen, hockey is a mess right now because they've gone far extreme of parity. Okay, so if every team is the same, it boils down, and fans know this, whoever gets the top 1-2 pick. Okay. And the Wings have not gotten that at all.
And we see...
so you're going to get average players or good players, but they're not going to take over games like we saw in the past.
Okay. Now, in your mind, what is going to be able to push this team over the edge?
They're going to have to do something stupid on a trade.
Okay. So they get rid of Larkin, get rid of Raymond, maybe trade Augustine.
Right, and go a different route. I'd like to see... The one route I'd like to see is the Wings get way more physical.
Okay.
And stop the finesse player bullshit. I mean, because it has not gotten them anything.
We've seen, teams like Washington double down on the physicality, and they just won their series versus the Canadians. We're just comparing to. You look at a team like Dallas, for instance, who are playing the winners of either the Jets or Blues, and that will be decided tonight at 7 p.m. But my thing is this, you look at a team like Dallas who has, they're the youngest team in the league. They're the second overall seed in the Western Conference. They had a tough series with the Avalanche, a lot of fights. I mean, one of my things as I look at this playoff series so far is there's a lot of physicality.
Right.
How much of this physicality is, just because they want the cup, and how much of it is to blame on the lack of the refs' consistency when it comes to calling penalties?
Well, I don't know how you feel about it or the fans feel about it, but the refs, the NHL has created a monster with these refs, okay? So the first monster is, I don't give a damn about the refs saying who the penalty is on the ice. I'd rather hear Bud Lynch for those people who remember the penalty was on Probert or Kosher, okay?
Yeah.
I don't want to hear the ref. That's number one. Number two is, look, you want some kind of chaos with hockey around penalties and stuff like that, but they're missing basic stuff, and they got 2 refs and 2 linesmen now. In my era, we had 1 ref and 2 linesmen, right? Yeah. So I think NHL, there's way too much parity only. Every team is the same, put a different jersey on. They basically have the same roster.
And I mean, you talk about parity, the NBA is getting there, but a team that was able to fill the LCA, unlike the Detroit Red Wings, the Detroit Pistons, I mean, heartbreaking way to lose in LCA. You lose to the Knicks, who obviously, throughout the series, I always had something during the season, hatred towards the Knicks because of Jalen Brunson and the flop master himself. When Durham's pointed out, he's a flopping motherfucker. But it's just one of those things that it just sucks, and especially with him hitting that 3 to win it. What do you think of the Pistons series? What do you think they could have done differently to win?
So I haven't watched a Piston game in basically 10 years. Now I started watching Piston games. So I was totally into it. It was heartbreaking, but I actually have a lot of passion that they're going to have a great team going forward.
Oh, definitely.
And they've built this base. And how ironic is that they're filling LCA during playoff time, and the Red Wings,
whose building it was supposed to be for,
right, exactly. So I thought it was a great series. It was very physical. Reminded me of the old days with the Bad Boys.
Yeah, a lot of people
Vinny,
compared them
Isaiah,
to the Bad Boys.
the Worm, and all that stuff. Those were great days. We used to have great times. They got that little bit Detroit basketball back.
Yeah, they did.
Cade learned a lot. He is a game breaker, unlike the Wings don't have that person who can take over a game. But he had a rough series.
He did.
He had a rough job to do. So I give the Pistons an A+. I'm heartbroken but I got a lot of passion for next year.
Oh, I agree. I'm excited as ever.
Yeah,
This should
and
be a
it's
lot
just
of
like the
fun.
Lions, right?
Yes, and they do have that great base, but one of their star players, kind of like the Lions, Aiden Hutchinson to Jaden Ivey, out with a broken leg. How much of Jaden Ivey not being in that, in those games hurt the Pistons? Because they needed a guy who consistently can come down the floor. McKeel Beasley was that guy who could shoot up those pop-up threes, but when it mattered, Cade dished to McKeel, and whatever happened. He dropped the ball out of bounds, and the Knicks go on to win.
Beasley needs to shut his mouth and shoot, right?
Okay.
He ran his mouth off in New York.
Oh,
yeah, I'm great, blah, blah, blah. And then when he played at the Garden, he was missing.
Yeah.
Missing shots. He played in Detroit. I thought his last game was pretty good.
Yeah.
Look, I know everyone's broken. We lost 3 games inside of LCA.
Yeah, you can't do that.
And the game that the foul should have been called on 3-point.
Yeah, versus Tim Hardaway Jr. in Madison Square Garden.
Yeah. Once again, the NBA, you might as well call them the WWE. It's scripted, okay? So that was a scripted game.
So after the win in New York to bring it back to LCA for Game 6, I don't know if you noticed this, but TNT posted that New York won and they won the series on the little counter bar. It's like, when you get down to those WWE moments, it's like, really, do we, it just kind of hurts. But
and people criticize wrestling, but there's so many WWE moments in NBA.
And Jalen Brunson's the king of it.
Jalen Brunson's the very king of it. And then you get into NFL.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's WWE.
And how?
So why would you want to criticize WWE? It's like,
for real.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so funny when you get down to that. But another thing to add on to that drama, and I think the folks out there could relate, Tom Thibodeau, the head coach of the New York Knicks, you want to talk about hypocrisy. His star player, Jalen Brunson, drew the most fouls that entire series. And that he's saying, after the game we beat him, he's like, hey, I hate to say it, but he was like, yeah, Jalen's not getting the calls. It's like at that moment, I think it was like 23-12.
Right.
Cade Cunningham to Jalen Brunson with 23. And it's like, you talk about these refs and everything like that. How much of a factor do you think psychologically to a player, if a ref isn't calling one half the way he did the previous half, so say the Pistons and they're letting the Knicks go, and then the second half it's all tic-tac, how much is that getting into their psyche where I couldn't drive here in previous halves I could?
Well, great point. I think refs create the sandbox for everyone.
Yeah.
Meaning in all sports, the strike zone during a game, the way they call fouls in an NBA game, or the way they call holding or stuff like that. I think the NBA is faulty with these refs because they're not consistent on how they'll call fouls. For all the fans that were watching the game, the first 2 games, like me, I thought it was a rumble. It was a cage match.
Yeah,
okay?
it was awesome.
It was like playing hoops at Mumford High where Fishman played, right? So it was really, really rough. I just don't think they create the right sandbox. I think the NBA is way off beat. That's why ratings are down. People are tired of it. I look at the Pistons, I say, we have a chance to really go somewhere with this team. We get Ivy back. We'll see what happens next year.
Yeah,
I think they got a great. Look, a lot of people criticize Gores. And he's turned out to be a pretty damn good owner now, right? Yeah. He's got the team going in the right direction. So
he does. And
kudos.
We talk about an owner like Chris Ilitch. Subsequently, let's flip from the sandbox to the sand lot. Let's talk about the Detroit Tigers here.
Well, I got my 2006 little pullover.
We're all repping the Tigers. Tigers are on over there, win 5-0 versus the Angels right now.
Oh, wow, it's 5-0.
Which is amazing to see. But no, nevertheless, Chris on the flip side, he's getting very good progression and progress out of his players for the Tigers. They're 21-13 right now. They're best in the AL. What do you think has been a key for this hot start?
I think the key to the hot start is the Tigers sucked for so many years, and they have some really, really good, talented young players. They bit the bullet and did it, I think they have a window over the next 4 or 5 years where they can actually be really good and make the World Series. Now their window's going to close as these young players go into their second stench of contracts, because then they're going to have to pay a lot of money. So the fact that Skubal is going to get a big payday, okay?
You think he's going to get it, or are you just stating that for all teams?
Oh, no, Skubal's going to get a big payday from somebody. Whether it's the Tigers, I can't tell you.
What do you think, though? Where's your gut reaction?
My gut reaction is Skubal will not play for the Tigers after the second contract.
Okay.
I think he'll go somewhere else. That's my opinion. And the reason I say that is because it's economics. So think about this. NBA, NHL, and NFL, the owners are all financially in great shape as it comes to the operations of the team.
Because they have the salary cap.
Right. Major League Baseball is screwed up. Screwed up. Unless you're a top one or two, unless you're LA or New York, all the other teams, Milwaukee, Detroit, the Cubbies, even the Cubbies, the White Sox, Cleveland, all secondary markets.
Yeah.
No one's going to make big money.
So do you think Skubal, after this season, they got him an arbitrary one-year deal, you think he's going to go to an LA, win a World Series, and come back like a Jack Flaherty?
No, I don't. I don't think he'll ever come back.
Okay, so what do you think he's gone?
I think he's a Justin Verlander.
Okay.
He's going to have a great year. He's Justin. They're playing great baseball.
Well, right now he's leading the team with the 2.21 ERA, the lowest on the team.
Skubal's going to win his second Cy Young.
That's a bold. Okay.
I'll guarantee. Unless the only way he's not going to win if he gets hurt. Okay.
Yeah.
But if he doesn't get hurt, he's going to win the second thing. And then I think the issue for the Tigers will be to sign him. But let's just enjoy what they're doing right now.
I agree.
So why do you think they're playing good?
It has to come down to the bats. You're a big pitching guy. You were a pitcher in high school, throw no hitter.
There you go.
My thing is I like hitting. I like explosive hitting. You got Spencer Torkelson with 10 home runs, 27 RBIs. Zach McKinstry with an OBS of 3.87. Riley Green with most hits, and then Zach McKinstry leading the team with a batting average of 302. But one of my things, your pitching and your hitting is, you're the least, you're only as great as the least among you. And one of the things that I kind of look at as a indicator for this team to go far is a guy like Javier Baez. Now, everyone, El Maglio, as they called him back in, Chicagoland, he's batting unbelievably. He's playing center field. He's moving around the diamond. He knows he needs to be flexible. For some odd reason, after the surgery, I don't know what he did mentally, but he's not swinging outside pitches. I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but he's batting unbelievably.
Well, maybe it was the
300.
surgery. Maybe he was really hurt.
Yeah.
Maybe the fans, we didn't just do this shit.
Right?
Yeah. But he is playing really good, and he's got a great bat.
He does.
When he hits the ball.
Yes.
But when some of those strikeouts he had where the ball was 3 feet away from his bat.
Yeah, that was.
I mean, shit, you could play wiffle ball better than that.
Yeah.
Okay, so. I think Baez is going to, if he keeps his pace, he's going to do some great things. The Tigers are not going to continue at a 600 pace, though.
Okay.
So everyone needs to understand that. They're going to probably be a 550 team, and they're going to get great pitching, some timely hitting. It all comes to they can go all the way, but can they beat LA?
So you think that no one in the AL scares you? Not even, Texas, the Rangers, or Cleveland or New York.
Everyone's beatable.
Everyone's beatable in the AL. You think the NL is where the Dodgers and obviously we beat the Padres, but you don't think that first series in your mind, like when we played the Dodgers right at the bat, I was thinking, my buddy Zach invites me over for a game. I'm thinking, why am I going over here? We're just going to get our heads bashed in, and we actually play them tight. You don't think that's going to happen later on in the season? If we make it to the World Series.
Yeah, if we were to get there and we play LA, I don't think it's a good outcome right now.
Okay.
I think LA, but I think that's what's wrong with Major League Baseball. There's one or two stacked teams from a talent standpoint based on money. There's no salary cap and stuff like that. So that's a problem, and we're not going to be able to overcome that problem eventually. Okay?
So you think it will change eventually?
I think it's going to have to. I think the economics of Major League Baseball don't make sense if you're an owner in Milwaukee, Detroit, or somewhere like that.
Very fair point.
Yeah, because I think the Tigers make a lot of money, or they make good money.
Yeah.
The Ilitch family. But think about this: when there was no NHL cap per se, who was the king of NHL? It was the Ilitches.
Yeah.
Because they spent a ton of money. They didn't have any. Yeah. They didn't have any cap. Now there's a cap, NHL, and there's a cap there's no cap in baseball, but there's an economic problem in baseball. So I just see that as being a problem long term, and I don't know if there's a way out of it right now. But I would say this, my enjoyment for Tiger baseball started many, many, many years ago, And what I love the most is sitting out in my backyard
Oh,
watching
yeah.
TV on a Saturday, Sunday. I wish I had Mr. Tom still around. We would watch games. I think we're going to have a great summer. We're going to be
Yes.
excited. I think Comerica has a chance to sell a lot of tickets.
Yes.
I want to go to the games. I want to watch the games.
Yes.
Just like the last Pistons stuff.
Yeah.
So let's go.
Yeah, let's go. We're looking forward to a great summer. Thank you, everyone out there, for tuning in. We really appreciate it.
Go Tigers.
Make sure to leave a like, follow, and comment. We really appreciate all your support from all of us over here at the Legacy Sports Podcast, sponsored by the Super Sports Bros podcast. We want to thank you for tuning in. Have a great night.
Good night.